Om. Om. Om Anandamayi Chaitanyamayi Satyamayi Parame. Om Sri Aurobindo Mira is my refuge. Namaste, good evening, Bande Matram, welcome all of you. The topic of this evening's discussion will be on Bhakti, devotion. The great word we are going to discuss for this first time here, very in this great day, in this great evening, of course. It is on Bhakti or devotion. So, Bhakti, we know many types of yoga we have seen: Karma Yoga, Bhakti Yoga, then Hatha Yoga, many yoga, integral yoga, many types of yoga we have seen. And most of the time, behind everything, that devotion or bhakti, it captures a big place. Everywhere you see, nothing can be done really without this bhakti or devotion. So this is it. Actually, it gets a big place, big role in the process of sadhana, that bhakti is there. So this bhakti yoga, we have seen this Chaitanya cult and all. So these are the great this Krishna culture. Bhakti, of course, it occupied a big role, a big position there during the ancient times, of course, in Dwapar time, and even many ages still now. This bhakti, it is getting a big role to play. It has, of course, played a big role. So many times we feel this bhakti yoga, we know this is the yoga of this devotion. So devotion, this is, we have known this yoga of this devotion. We have many places, in many ways we have seen. So again, also we see about this bhakti, that very interesting meaning of this bhakti. Will see love for the divine, devotion to the divine. Very interestingly, we have quoted. We know what is this bhakti. Bhakti is nothing but love for the divine, devotion to the divine. So love and devotion to the divine, this is the thing. This is the bhakti we have already played. So again, I will try to quote: Bhakti is love for the divine, devotion to the divine. So these are the bhakti what we have achieved and what we know. Again, we will try to read Sri Aurobindo, one beautiful, one single line, of course, one or two lines we will see from Sri Aurobindo's writing. Sri Aurobindo quotes on devotion, how it goes really in yoga. In yoga, of course, in our integral yoga and supramental yoga, this bhakti is absolutely necessary. Sri Aurobindo has quoted, "He who is turning to the mother is doing my yoga." We have seen, we have experienced, and we have also many times we have approached or discussed some areas. Because this devotion to the divine mother, bhakti for the divine mother is most essential, because without bhakti, really, that surrender never comes. And for this surrender, bhakti is essential. With this bhakti and devotion and this surrender, this path of this yoga, integral yoga, will be very much simplified. So, Sri Aurobindo quotes here on devotion: devotion is not utterly fulfilled till it becomes action and knowledge. So many times we take this bhakti or devotion in different ways. Simply, people feel they get detached from that karma yoga, jnana yoga, bhakti yoga. We have seen many types of yoga. We have seen. So many bhakti yoga, many people in many ways, in many aspects also, they try to nullify this work karma. So they feel it is done. Most of the time we'll sit to meditate and do our bhakti devotion towards the Supreme. It is enough probably. But in Gita, of course, most emphasis has been given. Most of the emphasis has been put on this karma yoga. In our integral yoga also, Sri Aurobindo has quoted, for the proper balance of the body, some work is necessary. So karma, we have also given most of importance. Thing is that karma and bhakti both should be there, because it is integral yoga. Everywhere, all the yoga where it ends, integral yoga only begins from that point. Still in the quotes here, devotion is not utterly fulfilled. It is not utterly fulfilled till it becomes action and a knowledge. Action, it relates to karma, body, and a knowledge, it relates to mind. So things, three things: devotion, vitality, devotion, along with action and a knowledge, simultaneously the three put towards the front. And Sri Aurobindo has quoted again, already I have put, this transformation can never be done. It is almost impossible without an unaided effort. So, mother, we know, actually this new creation and transformation is the work of the mother. So, for that, we must rely on the mother. We must surrender at the feet of the divine mother. We must give ourselves entirely, wholeheartedly, so that this bhakti, this yoga can be done in a very smooth manner. So for this smooth success of this yoga, it is the most essential thing is that we must surrender ourselves at the feet of the divine mother. So it is there. It is thing is that we must know, and there must be yearning, of course, yearning for this Lord. Sri Aurobindo again beautifully quoted one line: "The Bhakta seeks and yearns for Bhagavan." That is completely things are written in Sanskrit. The Bhakta seeks and yearns for Bhagavan. Bhagavan also seeks and yearns for Bhakta. This is a reversible process. So Bhakta and Bhagavan both yearn and seek each other. That is the way. This is the bi-directional way we have seen. So we have to plunge into the multiple profundities of the soul. That is yoga. So for this success of this yoga, bhakti is most essential factor we have already seen. So now we'll go and discuss little bit on this yoga and devotion in the writings of Sri Aurobindo. Few lines we'll see. Very interesting line we'll see here. So Sri Aurobindo, one line Sri Aurobindo quotes, very interesting, one or two definitions we'll see. The nature of bhakti is adoration, worship, self-offering to what is greater than oneself. Very interesting. This is also interesting and little bit confusing also. So there must be so many, in so many possible ways somebody has to think many times, many ways in many directions. The nature of bhakti is adoration, worship, and self-giving. Three things, it is clear. The nature of bhakti is adoration, we know, worship, we know, self-giving, we know. To what is greater than oneself? That is the second part is confusing. To greater than oneself. Somebody greater than himself, oneself, we have to give, offer our adoration, worship, and self-giving. That has to be considered. That has to be asked. Who is about the someone greater? What is greater? That is actually relative term. Thing is that we must very clearly and cleanly and consciously we will define that it is definitely to the divine, and for us divine is all, and divine is what we adore in Sri Aurobindo, and of course we know mother is the divine mother. Then the next very interesting quotation quoted by Sri Aurobindo, it is in this short message: bhakti is not an experience. Bhakti is not an experience. Repeatedly, that Sanskrit term bhakti has been used instead of devotion. In many places, also devotion is there. So, bhakti is not an experience. It is a state of heart and the soul. Not an experience. It is a state of heart and soul. It is a state which comes when the psychic being is awake and prominent. So just imagine, we are doing we are bhakti, we are bhaktas, we are devotions, we are doing devoted, we are doing the prayer, we are doing the puja, we have doing the giving, making the self offering, of course. But Sri Aurobindo in the final line, it is Sri Aurobindo has quoted very interestingly. It is a state which comes when the psychic being is awake and prominent. So with the awakening and the prominency of the psychic being, one can be able to know what really this bhakti and devotion is mean. Another very interesting the observation, it is somewhere Sri Aurobindo has quoted. It is when the psychic being is, the mind is pure and the psychic is prominent, then only someone can decide, someone can be able to know what is divine will and what is against it. So another term, very interesting term Sri Aurobindo has quoted: prayer and meditation count for so much in yoga. Prayer and meditation, in different ways of bhakti we are coming, that the prayers and meditations here in the quotes here. count for so much in yoga, but the prayer must well up from the heart on the crest of emotion and aspiration. So prayer must well up from the heart on a crest of emotion or aspiration. And then next one is your japa. Japa or meditation come in a live push carrying the joy and the light of the thing in it. So this is the japa and initially is the prayer and meditation. So if done mechanically and merely as a things to that ought to be done, means stern grim duty, if it is thought merely as a thing to be ought to be done, it must tend towards the want of interest and dryness and so ineffective. So with a mechanical process and all it can be done. There must be something is required. There should be aspiration. There should be some inner thoughts. There should be some yearning for it. It is essential. Then again we'll go for this really Bahya Puja and Anta Puja. Bahya means external worship. So here in the course here, what is meant by Bahya Puja or external worship? That question is there. So it is purely external here in the course. It is purely external. Then of course it is the lowest form. Just imagine what usually we do. So here in the course here, of course it is very lowest form, but it is done with the true consciousness. It brings the greatest possible completeness to adoration by following the body and the most external consciousness to share in the spirit and act of worship. This is the very interesting way it is written. Bahya Puja, it is the lowest. And by allowing body and the most external consciousness to share the spirit of, and the act of worship. There it is called as the Bahya Puja. Anta Puja, it is there, it is everything is related to psychic being, our inner worship. So again also we'll get very interesting definition. The deeper the emotion, the more intense the bhakti. Very interesting, good, fine judgment. The deeper the emotion, the more intense the bhakti. The greatest is deeper, then more intense, then greatest is the force of her realization and transformation. This is the requirement. I will quote it again, very interesting. The deeper the emotion, the more intense the bhakti. The greater is the force for realization and transformation. So, deeper emotion, deeper bhakti is essential for this process of realization and transformation. It is oftenest through intensity of emotion. Just imagine, again he quotes. It is oftenest through intensity of emotion that the psychic being awakes and there is opening in the inner doors of the divine. That awakening is required. So the thing is that the most required condition is the depth of emotion. So a couple of lines we'll see, very interesting because time is getting short. There is always the personal and the impersonal side of the divine. Two aspects we normally see it: personal and the impersonal side of the divine, and the truth. And it is a mistake to think impersonal alone to be true or important. So both personal and impersonal, they count equally. So for that it leads to the void, incompleteness in part of the being, while only one side is given satisfaction. Then personality after impersonality is here in the course of impersonality belongs to the intellectual mind and the static self. Impersonality belongs to the intellectual mind and the static self. Then what about the personality? Personality to the soul and the heart and the dynamic being. This is the difference, impersonality and the personality. Impersonality belongs to the intellectual mind and the static self. Personality to the soul and heart and the dynamic being. Those two disregarded the personal divine, ignore something which is profound and essential. Those who disregard the personal divine, they count most initially and normally they go for the impersonal. If we are just neglecting personal divine, then it is something like it is profound and essential, it is most required. In the following the heart in the pure impulses as once something that is required, and we will go for this bhakti. Thank you.